Why is life not working for so many people? Look at all the marketers out there, all the information you get on how to do it this way. You've got to do it that way to succeed. You've got to have website, you've got to have social media, then you've got to have the right algorithms, and then you have to have, and you have to have, and you have to do, and it's a constant mindset. And that's the thing, it's a mindset. You're strengthening the mind every time you buy into the having to do. So this has been a life lesson for me, because the first 38 years, no, it was more than that. 38 years was definitely just a flow from one position to the next, and each one being far better than the last and the more experiences. But at 38, after having some great positions with companies, running companies, I ended up in Hawaii. And it was a whole new world because I couldn't do what I was doing at the time, because it was the early 80s that I was doing in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I looked at it as an opportunity to say, well, I've always wanted to do this. So why don't I work for the biggest company and watch what they're doing and then open my own showroom? And this was in design. So I went to work for a company. They had an assistant buying position open, and at the last minute, before I even started, they called me and said, we want you to have the actually head buyer position in this department. They knew I was qualified, overqualified for it. They had originally offered me far less than I had made before, and I was a little shocked. But I thought, oh my gosh, you're kidding. And it was kind of an ego thing. And then I looked at it as, wow, this is great. If I had to go to college and pay for it to learn the skills I will be learning here with first-hand information, not something taught in a college, but actually there in the world with their customers, in this department with their vendors and manufacturers. So I looked at it as they're paying me. But I did say, in that allowing and looking at the opportunity, the idea came, and I said to them, well, that's fine, but after 3 months, I want a $2,000 a month raise. And they were like, well, what? And I said, well, I'll prove myself. I have 3 months to prove myself. And if it's not worth it to you, you can find someone else for the position and I'll be on my merry way. And so it was like, okay. Well, after 3 months, they were so floored by what I was doing that they gladly offered me the $2,000 extra a month. Now, my only regret was I should have asked for a percentage. But it was an incredible experience that then when my daughter was going to be born, one of the gentlemen went back on his word that I could take 6 months off and only have 3 months off, and I needed to come back. Well, that was not the original agreement, and there was no way I was going to leave my child at 3 months. So I told him I was going to quit. At that point, he said, no, just stay, because he knew he would probably get in trouble because I was a huge asset to the company. His excuse was that the company needed me. Wind avalanche. My departments were doing too well. And I said, wow, I'm penalized because my departments are doing so well. And I created all these new showrooms and I'm penalized, even though I set up everything that would run flawlessly for 6 months and they could just pick up the phone, my assistant, and call me if anything was needed and I could direct them. So he went back on his word because of jealousy, because his departments were not doing well. And I also was able to take over a 10,000 square foot piece of the showroom because he wasn't doing well with his and my sales had escalated. So there was a jealousy and I said no. So I left, and instead of being boo-hoo, and like they went back on their word, and I looked at it as another opportunity, knowing that in the moment, since I was flowing with what was happening, I wasn't trying to direct it, I was flowing. And in that, it allows us to see a door that is opening. What happens is doors constantly open in our life, but we don't see them because we don't believe they're there. Any fear, anger, blame, victimhood veils those doors, so you're not even aware that they're wide open for you. So I went and had my beautiful little daughter, and then after about a month or two, I hired the head gal from the company I had come from, because she was extremely detail-oriented, really good at foreign products, parts, all the behind-the-scenes stuff that I wasn't as good. I wasn't good at the detail. I did have an assistant to do that. I could do it. I was fascinated by it, fascinated by the number part, let's put it that way. My gross margin, return on investment, all that stuff. It thrilled me. I loved watching that. But as far as the day-to-day paperwork, organizing, order follow-through, boring. But she loved it, and I loved being with people and creating beauty in the world. So she was the perfect match. I offered her thousands more a year than she was making. And she jumped because she watched me operate, and she wanted to be a part of it. She had been undervalued and underpaid. And so she took this opportunity to work with me, and I had no idea how I was going to pay her the sum of money that I was offering. But I knew that it was in divine order and how the doors were opening and her saying yes. So she knew it was a risk, but she was willing to take that risk. We started out of my home at in an extra bedroom, ended up in a small little space, started doing well, but all of it was surrendering. Every single day, it was watching what was coming, following that energy. And that's what people don't understand when they listen to the, manifestation, gotta manifest this, and even the Abraham information. I think the basic core is probably correct. Flowing. Are you the boat on the stream? Are you flowing with the energy? Or have you put your sail, did you put your sail up and you're trying to, go the opposite way? Or are you, there with the rudder, or whatever it is? You're not allowing all this manifest what you want stuff, be positive all the time. You're supposed to experience different things. And that's why Jerry, Esther's husband from Abraham, ended up dying of cancer. He was so busy pushing against the cancer with his positive affirmations and visualizations that he probably never noticed that was his journey, is to look at the surrendering, to watching what it is trying to share with him. What's the message? What's the deeper meaning of why it was created, why he created it? And so I think he missed a really incredible opportunity. But then we never do. It always comes again in this life, next energy, wherever we are. The thing is, the next opportunity I had was this incredible showroom in the top of a building. It was only 3 stories of a building in Waikiki. Now, this was prime real estate, but the building was an older building and it was going to be torn down in a couple years. So when the realtor showed it to me, it was a big space. It was like 2,some hundred square feet, 2,500 square feet, something like that. And she said I could have it for only $1 a square foot because the building would be torn down probably in 2-3 years to build some high-rise. Well, this was perfect for me. I just wanted to get a feel if I wanted to be in Waikiki, get my business right there in the center of things. The only thing I didn't care for the space was that it had these low 8.5 foot ceilings with acoustical panels and all those horrible lights that are so unhealthy for people, those fluorescent tubes. And I knew I could take those out. And I remember looking at those panels and thinking, wow, that's highly unattractive, and it doesn't even feel chemically good, but I'm sure there was something I can think of to cover that up or remove them. And so I was, again, accepting the moment, but there was a desire I had of a spacious, there's a desire or a vision, actually, I should say, that I saw with this big open light space. And it really wasn't that. But I flowed with it. And then it wasn't a yes or no if I'd take the space, but I saw light shining through this corner. And I said to the realtor, well, I do want them to take all the fluorescent lights out of here. And they're going to need to fix the roof because I see light shining through, so there must be a hole in the roof. She said, oh, no, it's an all-glass ceiling. It was this huge expanse of an A-frame type of glass ceiling. I pushed some panels away and went, oh my gosh, it was like 18 feet at least, and maybe 20 at the center. And I'm looking through this beautiful light pouring through, and I just said, I want all of this acoustical stuff out. And so she said, okay, they can do that. I had the whole thing painted out, and what was such a gift is like, how was I going to put blinds over that, right? I had furniture, accessory, fabrics, and even the heat of Hawaii. Now, how was I going to protect us? But miraculously, again, because I was flowing, because I felt inside what it was I needed to really perform at my peak, to create beauty on the world and help other people to create beauty in the world of quality products, of furniture and fabrics and accessories, but everything was quality. And since I had worked, of course, at that design firm, the store, all these manufacturers were so eager to give me their higher end lines, knowing how great I was at selling them and representing them. So I had these incredible lines. So once we took that out, I noticed there was like 4 or 5 poles up at the top, towards the top, about 12 feet up, that went across. And what I was able to do was to take like a wide canvas, like a 60-inch canvas, and just in white or cream, and just drape it from pole to pole. So it was beautiful. So it went up and down, all the way across. And I could control the light, how much canvas, if it was close by each other or they were spaced. It was like fantastic. And the area that the fabrics were going to be in, with these big fabric arms, if people know, like showrooms in San Francisco, LA, New York, Europe, these big fabric arms came out, and there was a soffit there. So that was all protected from the light. So nothing was, oh, darn it. It was all, okay, what can we do with this? And again, that's flowing with universal grace. And that's what we were all meant to do. And from one thing to the other, from ending up in Oregon, when we were supposed to go back to California, and what happened there, what happened in Washington, I got to experience so many different things. I got to reinvent myself every time. But each time it was, oh, I wonder what's going to happen here. So then I started doing design in Oregon, whereas when I was in Honolulu, it was magical because I could sell, 200, 300 nightstands to a hotel where before it was Mary Jo, that I could only sell 2, and that was like, oh my God, what a headache. Sometimes some of these people can never make up their mind. They keep changing their minds, like, oh my God. And so my commissions were fantastic with less effort. And I got incredible lines that I had so much fun with, and were part of, got into these big hotels like the Maui Prince. I was in the Sheraton. I was in, worked with Chris Hemmeter. So in mega hotels, on designers also. But it was interesting then to be moving to Oregon because my former husband left their family business and wanted to do something on his own. Ended up in Oregon, opening a shop. I had gone through a divorce. We'd been there a few years, divorced him, and just the events that happened after that, because I knew there was something else trying to come through about creating beauty. It wasn't just interior design. It was knowing that the indoors and outdoors had to speak together, had to flow together, that we had to be a part of nature, and how vital that is for our well-being. And so I would draw up till late at night all these landscape drawings and homes and draft all these things. And I went into a place called Salem Blue, and they do the blueprints. And I had some made, and I was sitting at a big table, and I was just adding something to one. And a gentleman came in, and everybody was kind of flocked around him because he did this like 20,000 square foot house that had all these 10 acres of manicured gardens, and he'd won some awards, and he was at the counter, and I went up to look at what he was doing, and I said, wow, it's absolutely gorgeous what you're doing. And we started talking. He came over and looked at what I was doing, and he goes, oh, you kind of have a same design aesthetics that I have, where it was kind of that formal English and French country, but also the wild and the flowing, and creating rooms to create magical spaces to go read or lay in a hammock or have conversations or eat dinner or whatever it was. And so we started talking, and I said, I would love to learn landscape from you. So he ended up bringing me on as an apprentice. And I did that part-time. Pretty soon I was doing his plans. He was making 10 times the money off of them that I was being paid. But again, it was an education, right? It wasn't having to go to college to learn landscape design. He was paying me for each design, even though he got far more. And that was okay. And then Venetian plasters were something I had seen in Italy and done some work with those when I was 19 years old and in Europe for many, many months. And so it started coming back where old faux finishes and things were coming back into demand, and marbles and stones and refinishing of things. And I thought, I really want to do that because I love the French countryside, the Italian countryside, and, Venice. And Venice was built on faux finishes because they couldn't have the real marbles and stones because it would sink the buildings, right? So that's where they originated. And I took some classes, but then there was an opportunity after my divorce to go to a class in New York. And I think it was like $10,000, but I didn't have $10,000 right after my divorce. But I thought, wow, wouldn't that be wonderful? Even though I didn't hold on to the idea came, and I saw the beauty in it. I saw these rooms flowing into the outdoors. Excuse me. And these old finishes, or, finishes that were even very subtle, but gave dimension. And so walls didn't just stop. So what happened after that was somebody stole things from my home. And the funny thing is, they didn't even get what was important. They left behind what was important, but the insurance company sent me 2 checks. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3. When I added them up, it was exactly $10,000. So again, I didn't go into fear and think, I should save this because I'm divorced now and I might need the money and I have children and blah. I knew it was the universe supporting the beauty of my dreams. Or what it is it's almost that remembering of God seeing through us, God working through us, and creating this beauty. So I'm the instrument, and that remembering is what shifted every moment of my life. So I went to New York. I learned these incredible faux finishes and marbles and stones, and was able to do things that I could have. Somebody said, he actually got past, like he could do finishes at Buckingham Palace because so many of them were actually faux finishes, and you have to go through this huge process. And then there's these white wigged men that there was 12 that they had to approve. You had to do all these different finishes, I think, that matched what was there. So even if it was a real wood door or something, you had to match it in a faux if it ever needed to be placed or something like that. He looked at my stuff and he said, "Oh my God, you could do this." But that wasn't mine to do. For a brief moment, I kind of started following him, and he told me about going to a job in France with him and this and that. But I knew that was mind, that was will, because the doors weren't flowing open in a financial way and an effortless way, and I would have to make it happen. And I let it go. And when I had learned this, I was able to incorporate it into my design, but I was also able to just go into people's homes, and that $10,000 turned into hundreds of thousands of dollars of client fees. So, and then doing design. So some of it was just that finishing, others incorporated it into my design jobs. Then there's the next stage. Each stage was different. I was able to build cottages, redo properties up in Washington, buy land, subdivide. I made $900,000 off of one subdivision just in a couple of years. It was being in the moment and being so clear of the divine is working through me that the veils were thin so I could see the open doors. Again, we don't see the open doors because the veils have been so dense, because we are eating toxic food, GMOs, chemical food, being on our computers, the EMFs all the time, that our thinking is fearful, becomes fearful because we are closing our pineal gland with the chemicals, with stress, with fear, with aluminum in pots when I was a child, with mercury in our fillings, with aluminum in our air that's chemtrails, and that is totally killing so many things, that the magnesium, we're not getting the magnesium in our bodies that it can actually help offset that. So the imbalance to nature, our forgetting nature, our disconnect has been what has created our warring, our stress, our fear. And in the book, Grow a New Body, which my friend Shannon told me about, is just magical. It was everything I needed to hear. The not only our diet, but our spiritual balance, the nature balance, body, mind, and soul, and that deep understanding again. So that disconnect didn't allow us to really feel what was going on. And he mentions that 10,000 years ago, that is when we became out of balance, and these people tried to rule the planet, and we were eating meat, and we weren't the hunters and gatherers, where maybe we would feast on our catch of game once a week or every 2 weeks or something like that, but we were mostly eating fruits and vegetables and what was from that area, local. So our bodies knew what to do with it. And so when we became creating wheat, when we started doing dairy, this was all like so out of balance what our body needed. And people eating meat all the time, they have way too much protein, and they think they don't have enough. And it's just the way our intestinal tracts are now. All of this behavior created the fear and warring and struggle and the need for survival in our society. So once again, I'm realizing that after my divorce in Washington from my second husband, and what came down for 4 years was just so unbelievable, None of my friends could even believe it that had gone to some of the court, whatever they are, hearings. They were like blown away. They could not believe the ugly attorney he got and the manipulation of the courts. And they were, at first they didn't believe me because it was such a ridiculous soap opera that nobody could believe it until they would come and sit there with their mouths hanging open. And I had idiots of attorneys, I have to say, trying to be fair, trying to be honest. You know what I learned? This is a business deal. You get two high-powered attorneys, just like you would if you were selling your business and you had a business partner. You let them fight it out, and then you're done. But I was manipulated. I was taken a huge advantage of and trying to take the higher road. But that higher road was actually infused with fear. For the first time, I realized when he was taking money into Canada, which he just had gotten dual citizenship on my behalf of having U.S. And his dad's name was the exact same name as his, even his middle name. He was able to move things in his dad's stocks. He was able to do things that I was watching and he had been doing, and I had questioned. But I was being really foolish and naive and putting his name on everything, and he was putting nothing under mine. So that was the part that wants to trust, but is really just doesn't want to question because wants the fairy tale of this relationship, because we were this power, beautiful couple when we were both in our, late 30s, early 40s, or what was it? Yeah, late 30s through our 40s and whatever. And then trying to hold on to that image of who we were, but it wasn't real underneath. Yes, we were great at business together, but on a personal level, it was disastrous. But God, we looked good at parties. We looked like the perfect couple. And yet my close friends knew that was not the case at all. But business-wise, we would have just been great as business partners for sure. So that was an interesting thing, to live in fear for 4 years and stress and literally thinking I was going to have a nervous breakdown and giving up so many times thinking I was surrendering and really wasn't. And that's another story for another time, because there were so many incredible, valuable lessons. And even the final time, the fifth or sixth time that he took me to court, it was finally when I saw the woman's car drive up and get out, and I knew she wasn't from around here, and her suit and her manila envelope, that she was going to serve me again. And in that moment, I decided I would go meet her. My first reaction was hide, so she couldn't give me the court papers. And I thought, nope, I'm head on. I went out, got them from her, signed, and decided in that moment that I would not open those papers until I was okay, truly okay, and in surrender and grace and love, no matter what they said. And I would not open them until there was no fear, because I realized the entire 4 years that had transpired with the madness of 3 homes, land, and multiple other things, that several of them should have gone to me, especially because of an inheritance with my dad, what I had done with that money and created wealth with that money, were now literally stolen by him. And I won't say literally stolen, say big parcels of that did not come to me. So it was an interesting thing that occurred, but all of it had been because I had spent 4 years out of the grace of God. I started drinking wine when I never used to drink wine. Very rarely, like maybe a Christmas party and I'd drink half a glass of wine. But I started catching myself like going out in the evening going, oh, I don't need wine. I need a bottle of wine. I realized I had been going through a bottle every 2 days because it was my go-to when I couldn't deal, I couldn't function. So that's another thing. Look at your addictions. What are your addictions? What is that internal thing that, okay, I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling something. What do you think I have to have? That's the very thing not to have. Unless you have to have prayer and meditation or doing some kind of yoga, forget the rest of it. Anyway, once I went in, and the next morning, the events that happened were magical, and that I ended up going to court myself, not having an attorney, and that was the end. Actually, the judge said to my former husband, I don't ever want to see you in my courtroom again. And he looked back at some of the stuff, and like I said, I'm not going to go into it because it's really a pretty spectacular story on surrender and trusting God, and where I was able to take my mind to, I can see the opportunity. What if? And that's when the doors of grace began to open once again. And yet, ending up in San Diego, and all those doors closed because I didn't have the financial resources anymore that I should have had living in a very expensive area. And my design, here I had referrals for 30 some years, so I never even had a website. I never was on social media. The only social media I went on was Facebook because my kids said, Mom, this is what everybody's doing. Well, they're not on it anymore. But at the time, it was new and it was for the younger generation. And he said, that's where we, share photos and stuff. So I got on, wasn't real active in it, but began, when I was in San Diego, get more and more active because I was watching how everybody was doing. Everybody was do, you got to do this. And therefore, I had lost my entire referral base of clients that I had had for over 30 years. Word of mouth, people seeing what I had been doing and just calling me and say, I want this, I want you to do that, I saw so-and-so's home, or I saw so-and-so's Venetian plaster walls, or whatever it was, or you redid all their pots and these old finishes, or their light fixtures, or their furniture, whatever it was. I lost that. I came into a world where nobody knew me. There was no referrals anymore. And I bought into what other people were saying, how it was a hard market. It was a difficult market. There were so many designers, and you had to really had a niche, and it was very cliquey, and it was very this and that, and all the things I needed to do. So I dove in the world of needing a website and media, and oh my God, I'm not doing this right. And then once you accomplish this, and there's something else because there's a new algorithm, or you have to do people want that quick fix, that 5-second grab. Then it became a 3-second grab their attention. It's absurd. Do you get how absurd this is, this world, this marketing, and what you have to do to be seen, to be known, to express your divine gifts? Like, are you serious? Each one of us is unique. We are a unique aspect of the Creator, and the Creator wants to see through us and perform through us, not what all these other people are doing. That's not our path. Even gurus, when you follow a guru, but you don't step then beyond that, if you look at them as a teacher, and then you learn what you have to embody, what is important to you in that moment, and move forward. You don't stay there. You don't stay with your kindergarten teacher or your first grade teacher. You progress and you incorporate it. Who are you? Like, who is the divine wanting to reflect? That's not quite the right word, but I think you got what I mean. We're not being unique because we're following somebody else's design. And even they are following somebody else's design and somebody else's design. So it became madness of being on social media when, thank God, I went to Italy because I knew I had to reboot. I had to get away from all the Wi-Fi. I had to get away from the needing to do, trying to figure out. and remember who I had been my whole life when everything magically appeared. And I followed it because the veils were so thin. So once again, I'm using the tools that were presented in front of me. My friend Shannon, out of the blue, just said, "Hey, I've been reading this book, Grow a New Body. I think you will love it." The minute I started reading it, I knew it was for me. It was the door that opened, and that how vital it was for me to detox, because my brain has become foggy. The fear, the stress, the chemicals has closed more my pineal gland when it used to be so open. But it's so beyond the limbic brain. It's not that, it's the higher sense. I was feeling a disconnect from nature. I used to talk to the nature spirits early in the morning and just pick up energy, knew in every moment what direction to take, which way to move. The opportunities were just opening. And it's a time now to go back to that. And so the last month and a half and I have in Italy is the detoxing. It's communing with nature. It's limited Wi-Fi. I'll have to go to the market to even download this, and it doesn't matter if anybody listens to it or not. It's a remembrance to me that it's so important not to forget I am not the doer. The doer comes through me. I am the vehicle. Just like your car. The car is not the doer. We inside of the car take it to where it needs to go on its journey. Divine Source is using this vehicle of my body to direct me in ways that I can't imagine, that are far more blissful and joyful and prosperous than anything that I did in the last 6 or 7 years that was trying to force, because people, manifest again, go back to manifesting. When I realized my manifestations even came in the moment of awareness, where I claimed a piece of land, where I claimed something I saw, but I didn't go make it. I wasn't looking for it. It presented the opportunity to me. I followed it. So therefore, the shadow part of me, which has felt so dislocated for so many years now, since that last divorce, there's a realization it's not a bad thing. I had to go in the chaos as part of my overall existence, like the fabric of my being, to understand what others are in, so I can help direct them out. Because that's the thing, when you just allow life to unfold and it's effortless and easy, and one opportunity and one door opens and opens and opens. When you don't realize that's what you're actually doing, you cannot help anyone else. How can you? My response to people when they say, well, how did you get those beautiful clothes, or this or this house, or that? Well, you just manifest it. I was totally puzzled by their question. Now I understand about going in the depth of hell and forgetting. Hell to me is forgetting who I am in the divine matrix, in divine energy, my oneness to all things. It's the forgetting. So those 7 years, I was in a state of forgetting and toxicity, and allowing it to just cover me with garment after garment after garment until I could barely see between the veils. But again, they're falling away rapidly for one reason. I realized what I had done, how I had started living from the human mind world and not the mind of God, or mind's not correct, the source of God, the energy of creator. If you don't like the word God or creator, put your own in. It's just an expression of something that is so beautiful beyond you, that is creation. So what I realized is now I can help others get out of the darkness because I went there and now I've returned and I'm watching the veils falling away as I'm detoxing. And I won't go back to the wheat I never did meat, thank goodness, because that's a whole nother mind shut down or being shut down, that energy. But going to a really healthy, getting rid of the sugar. I'm not saying not do it once in a while. Once in a while is fine. It's imbalanced. Our whole being is imbalanced. That I didn't even want to live anymore because my body had no energy. It was so confused. It was jumping from one thing to another, trying to find where I belong, where was home. And home is cleaning out this being, this sacred vessel. So we once again are so connected with the light that it is just as beautiful. I see these columns of light just swirling around me, connected to earth, sky, but all connected. So anyway, what I'm going through, I am connected to all. And for those that have gone through some of these things and are confused will begin to awaken also just by me.